Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and we are going to do a little update, short video, but should be hopefully monumental, update on the Schroll Coupe, the 32.5 window. We got a couple years in the Schroll estate, which we have up here on the lift. So I've been really bad at filming lately, and we did a bunch of work and realized that we never really got it on video, and we're just about ready to move this thing under its power. So number one, I finished up the stainless exhaust underneath the car. So my header that I built came down, and I had it to right here with just a straight pipe, and we took it to the Wheels of Time show, and that was far enough that it looked okay for that show. And what I did is I finished up the exhaust. So I welded on some flanges here, some gaskets, and then I built the exhaust, and it goes back, up, out, and it actually dumps right back here. We're gonna put some resonators in there, of course, because everybody will yell at us. The no muffler police will yell at us, like we always get yelled at. So we'll have that in there, and you can see I got that all built around. We got our oil filters hidden up in here. We finally got all the leaks sorted out with this old oil filter. It was just a little bit of a process, but we have a new filter in there, AKA really expensive toilet paper. Steve got the we got the battery box in there. We're gonna do some hold down stuff for that. We gotta finish real quick before we get it going. Oh, we got the drive shaft finally. Local drive shaft place has been very busy, and they finally got our drive shaft done. Drive shaft is was a little bit tricky, so we have it's a shoebox Ford rear, which uses a like mechanics style joint, which are starting to get a little hard to find. So use a mechanics style joint, which we had to get a conversion joint for that, and then he has a slip joint that's actually in the drive shaft instead of on the trans itself, and then there is a conversion joint here that's a different mechanics joint for the LaSalle trans. So I had to kind of search the internet to find some of those parts for those conversion U-joints because they were getting hard to find, but we got it all sorted out. Everything's good. It went in really nice. We got everything greased up, so we should be able to make the engine turn the wheels, which is really exciting. So we're gonna let it down on the lift now, and we'll show you guys the other stuff we have going and see if we can get this thing running. All right, so now we're on the ground. We'll show you the rest of the stuff that we did, and we forgot to film. Shame on us. So number one, we ended up running, we had an old Moon fill pressure gauge that I kicking around that I wanted to put on here because we have a bunch of Moon stuff. We have these valve covers that we put on and these cool little knobs and et cetera, et cetera. So we got that Moon gauge we put on because A, we need a fuel pressure gauge because we have a electric fuel pump and a regulator, so we wanted that. So we ran the lines in there. We have that all connected. Steve has been working on the linkage. He's got all the progressive stuff pretty much all hooked up, so we're gonna try and get done in this video is get it to run on all three carbs. We got it to run on one carb, kind of in between off camera. Went through the carburetors and got them all set up correctly. The other thing I did off camera was I made these radiator hoses. I had to take some mandrel bend tubing, like exhaust tubing, and cut, and just like we're doing an exhaust system, cut and weld and make these pieces of tubing because everything is really tight on this thing. So I have this little chrome fan that I fit on there. I had to trim it down just a little bit so it would clear and loop around, and then I had to make a line here that is flattened and snakes in front of the cross member and then goes up to the engine there. So we got that all hooked up. We got to pull all this stuff back apart. Steve's gonna try and clean the radiator out in this video and make sure we got the cooling system all buttoned up, and then we're gonna fire it up on three carbs, and then hopefully we're going to take it for a drive around the block. Super excited. It's been, what, 2 years coming. So we're doing a little bit of work, and hopefully at the end of this video, we'll be taking it around the block. All right, so we got the battery tray out. Steve had built this battery tray a while back just so we could get a battery in the car and fire it for the first time, but we never made a hold down. So it's just real simple. At an angle iron, it has these two flanges on the bottom that go over the cross member, and it tucks up inside the frame, which is really nice. Put a little bit of rubber on here just so it sits and doesn't rub and have any problems. But what we didn't do, because we were just trying to get it running, was we didn't put a hold down on it. So obviously over bumps, this battery could float around, which we don't want. So we're trying to keep the whole battery with the tray self-contained. This is just a little This is like a very large, I guess you could say ATV type battery. It's 12 volt, it's got 500 cold cranking amps, which is pretty decent. We're not driving this car in the winter. It's not like a high compression race engine. It's just almost essentially a stock, basically essentially a stock Olds engine. So it should crank the engine over fine. We have a generator, so we'll charge it. So in theory, this little battery should work out very, very nicely. So what we have, we're just gonna do pretty simple setup here is just take this flat stock I have, knock it off at the length we need, and then I'm gonna take some threaded rod and we'll weld it to the side. I'll take that to the side there on either side, and then we can just pull this down and it'll hold it nice and tight. And then we have everything self-contained so that we're not having to fish the battery out of the tray. We can take the bolts out and kind of just slide it off the cross member. So I'm gonna take some measurements, get this all ready, weld it up, and then we'll dust it with some black paint for the extra parts, and we should be good to throw this in and wire it up and get ready to fire this thing. That's a good step. Running all three. That's a real good step. Yeah.
I'm really happy that worked.
Yeah. All right, so we're rolled the car outside. We finally got a nice day, and Steve's filling up the radiator, trying to flush out like any of the shavings and stuff from when I did this change down at the bottom for the tube. But what he found was he flushed out the top hose and little mousy turds that I guess didn't go out the bottom and came out the top. So this is why we got to flush these old radiators, even though it seemed decent. All it takes is one little mousy to plug it up. So hopefully we can flush this thing out, make sure everything's flowing, and then we'll put our clamps on. We got it to fire like you guys heard, so we're 1 or 2 steps away from taking this around the block. So a little bit more work and we'll be driving it. Was it tight on some holes?
Possibly. We just shook it around a little bit and kind of fell in.
Oh, okay. Like that.
Like that. It was a lot like that.
It looks like it'll work. Push it a little forward. Oh, that's there. Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, even right there, to be honest. But let me.
90% of the way out now. You get a handle.
I might just leave it.
Oh, okay.
Be completely honest, because we don't really need to go further than that. We can lay the carpet down.
Yep.
Oh, you know what we were gonna do? We may want to do it right now.
What's that?
Sound deadening.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's boxes in my dad's car.
There is.
Why don't we steal that and lay some before we put this carpet? Because we may not pull this carpet out ever
Again.
or again. So I think this car is gonna be really tinny if we don't do that.
It will be, yeah.
So.
All right, moment of truth.
Yeah, Steve's been tinkering away on this and got a bunch of the stuff kind of taken care of. So we put our clear plug wires on. So our buddy Pete has been donating some of his stash over the years because he's kind of done having tons of projects. So he gave us a roll of this clear plug wire, and Steve put that on. It looks freaking awesome. Super psyched on that. We got an oil pressure gauge all hooked up. We had to put a little T underneath on these Oldsmobile engines. The only place that we could find that you could put an oil pressure gauge was where the oil filter was. And when you put this Hildebrandt setup on here, there was not an extra port, and it was meant to be, I guess, T'd or something, but we have very limited room. So we put a T further back that'll give us our oil pressure reading, got the gauge hooked up. And what do we have? Would we have 60 pounds?
60 pounds.
60 pounds cold of oil pressure. This is seems to be a pretty darn good engine. I think.
Oh, license plate. Let's show them the license plate now.
Got a Hollywood light that Mike pulled out of the stash. I'm gonna steel wool it a little bit more, but we have our license plate on there that we got from our buddy Nick. That he had in his swap meet booth at Carlisle or something.
No, it was at Gasket Goons.
Guess he was. I'm like, what? You got a low number 32 PA plate that's clear? So I got that. Steve got that on and got it wired, so you can see the back end of the car. It didn't really do much for drilling new holes. He kind of he opened up a hole here for the light, but otherwise it's pretty good. So, oh, we got to get we can get some more fuel in this thing. So we're gonna drop it down off the lift, move it for the first time. I put the clutch in and out like on the lift to make sure that the drive shaft and the clutch and everything worked, and that was okay. But we've never even just done our normal like inch it in and out of the garage, so we're feeling confident today.
Floor mats.
Oh yeah.
Seats bolted down.
Seats bolted down. Our buddy Jason Lacombe got one of his friends has an estate he's doing that had a bunch of old accessory stuff from the 50s and 60s, and these are just old Rubbermaid brand floor mats that he had that were for the back, and they're like a see-through green, and they were perfect for this thing. So we have these in here to keep the carpet from getting grubby. And we got the seat bolted down. We actually moved the seat a little further back. In the beginning, I had the seat all the way back. Then I moved it forward, and then I decided that it was kind of uncomfortable, so we moved it back, and that's probably the sweet spot for it. So got most of the stuff all hooked up now, so I think we're ready to take it for a sketchy test drive around the block. Not so sketchy test drive around the block.
What happened? Something happened?
No, there's a magnet on the dash. It's actually not that loud, surprisingly.
Not yet.
Pounds of oil pressure, good to go.
Yeah, it's gotta get these pedals adjusted. Because you're in between the shifter and the...
Yeah.
Who knows, the idle might drop once you start getting the drop. Yeah, it's just a little...
This way.
Now we're pissing the neighbors off.
Oh wow. Oh, it's making my day right there. Oh,
I couldn't not do that.
yeah, right? Yep. Yeah, you can't.
I just had to. I mean, I feel like
You can't not do that.
it's really just that idle. Either that or the clutch isn't disengaging on off.
I think maybe we could adjust the clutch a little bit. I think we built some adjustment into it.
Yeah. But I feel like the clutch already had some. What was that? Oh, is it maybe rubbing on the tire rubbing on?
Maybe the tire rubbing on something. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it seemed like.
Front end needs I might put tube shocks on this thing too. You can hear the front end rattling around like a...
Oh, yeah?
It seems like it's idle a little high because I'm...
Yeah, it is.
I'm off the throttle.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It's at 180, so...
Still not bad. I mean, that's still good.
Yeah. Brakes are definitely not as good as the thing is for going quick.
Might have to go over the brakes again, huh? Oil pressure runs right up to 60 pounds when you get on it.
Yeah. Temps dropping too, just from us moving along a little bit. I saw it going back down to 170.
Yep. Yeah, with the thermostat in it, that's fine. That's running fine like that with the thermostat.
Yes!
So what'd you think?
That might have been the most fun first drive yet.
I'm even more in love than I was before.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it runs really good. It's just,
Look at the headers burning in.
yes. Yeah, all the stuff that would I would correct is just like ergonomic type stuff. Like the pedals are a little, like the gas pedal needs a little bit of, so we moved the seat back and I think the pedal I had set too far forward. So little things like that. We got to get the idle to drop down a little more. It was grinding going in first because idle was just a tad too high and it, non-synchronized first gear. You got to get the idle lower. So yeah, I mean, otherwise it sounds awesome. It feels cool. I hope it looks as cool as it feels
does.
when we're driving. It feels. All right, so we took our first little drive around the block and it went pretty successful. We were able to get on it just a little bit and everything feels really good. We have some small adjustments to make, as you would expect with anything that's this far apart. I was saying, probably you might have overheard, but I was saying a little bit when we were driving and stuff, the pedals, the angle of the pedals need to be adjusted a little bit. The gas pedal I had a little far down because we did it when the seat was a little forward. So we need to adjust some of that stuff just to make it a little more comfortable and tighten a couple little odds and ends up. But overall, it did pretty good. It ran nice and cool. Drove pretty decent. So we just got to do a little bit more tying up the wires and completing things. We got some interior stuff that Joe, that did the seat and the carpet, he's working on the door cards and some of that stuff. We're going to make a roof insert like we did on the Pagoda City Coupe that we'll get upholstered. So a bunch of little things we'll be doing kind of off camera, and we'll shoot some updates as we go. But man, first time this thing is driven since, we don't even know, 1960?
I think
Larry bought it in 63, but we don't know if it was even running in 63.
there was no engine, so.
So it was, it might even be since the late 50s that this thing has driven around. And the first time it's driven with an Oldsmobile in it, which was Larry's dream to have an Oldsmobile in this thing. So kind of feels cool that we kind of completed somewhat what his dream was of this car, and it's back on the road and driving. And I can't wait to put some miles on it this summer once we work out a couple bugs and the weather gets just a little warmer. We're gonna be out cruising this thing as it should be. So thank you guys for following along, appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of the Schroll Coupe rolling down the road. Does it look badass? Yes or no? Thanks guys, catch you later.